1 month later, everything looked very different. I stood near the floor-to-ceiling window of my new headquarters in downtown Chicago. The entire top floor of the Morrison building now belonged to Williams Capital Investments, my company. The morning sunlight spread across the city skyline, reflecting off glass towers and busy streets below. It was strange. For years, I had worked quietly in the background, buying buildings, renovating properties, studying markets, making deals, all while my own family believed I was barely surviving. Now the truth was impossible to ignore. My phone vibrated on the desk. A text message. Marcus. Asterisk, can we talk? Alone. Asterisk. I stared at the message for a moment. During the past few weeks, my family had reacted to the truth in very different ways. My mother had started calling almost every day. Sometimes she sounded apologetic. Other times, she tried to casually ask questions about my business, as if she could somehow understand how everything had changed so quickly. My father had taken a different approach. Silence. He signed the lease agreements without a single argument. No apology. No conversation. Just quiet acceptance. But Marcus had disappeared completely. Until now. I typed a short reply. Come to my office at 2 p.m. Right on time, my assistant Sarah knocked on the door. Marcus Williams is here to see you. I nodded. Send him in. A few seconds later, Marcus walked into the office. He looked different. Not physically. But something about his confidence was gone. The usual arrogance had disappeared. He glanced around the room. Nice office, he said quietly. Better than my firm's. I folded my hands on the desk. Your firm's lease expires next month. Marcus sighed and sat down. Yet about that. For a moment he didn't speak. Then he rubbed his forehead. The merger deal collapsed. I waited. And the partners decided to cut staff, he continued. His voice sounded heavier now. Apparently having your landlord as an embarrassing family situation isn't great for their reputation. He looked up at me. I've been let go. The room became quiet. Marcus had spent his entire life following the perfect path. Top grades, prestigious law firm, fast promotions. And suddenly it was gone. What do you want, Marcus? I asked calmly. He hesitated. Then he answered honestly. I want to understand. He leaned forward slightly. How did you build all this without any of us noticing? For a moment, memories flooded my mind. Family dinners. Conversations where my achievements were ignored. Years of being treated like the failure of the family. I finally spoke. Grandmother taught me something important. Marcus looked up. She said the most powerful position in the world is being underestimated. I opened my laptop and pulled up a document. I spent 6 years studying markets. I continued. Buying properties nobody wanted. Fixing buildings everyone else ignored. Learning from every mistake. Marcus studied the screen carefully. What is this? A business analysis, I said, of your old law firm. His eyebrows lifted. You analyzed my firm? For 3 years. He blinked. Why? Because they were one of my tenants. Marcus leaned back slowly. Then he looked at me again. Why are you showing me this? I closed the laptop gently. Because I'm offering you a job. He stared at me. You're serious? Yes. What kind of job? Head of legal operations for Williams Capital Investments. The silence returned. Marcus looked completely stunned. You want me to work for you? With me? I corrected calmly. As long as you earn your place. He picked up the contract I slid across the desk. His lawyer instincts returned immediately as he began reading the details. The salary is lower than my previous job, he said. That's the base salary, I replied. Look at the equity section. His eyes moved down the page. Then they widened. Ownership shares? I nodded. Grandmother taught me something else too. Build ownership, not just income. Marcus slowly placed the contract back on the table. Then he picked up the pen. For the first time in his life, he signed something without arguing. When he finished, he stood up. At the door, he paused. Emily. His voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. I'm sorry. I nodded slightly. I know. Then I added one final sentence. Now prove it. That evening I drove to the cemetery outside the city. The wind moved softly through the autumn trees. I stopped in front of my grandmother's grave and placed fresh flowers beside the stone. For a while, I just sat there quietly. You were right, I whispered. About everything. About patience. About strategy. About letting people underestimate you while you build something real. My phone buzzed again. A message from my mother. Sunday dinner at your house this week? I looked up at the sky. For the first time, they wanted to come to my home. My table. My world. A small smile appeared on my face. Maybe things would never be perfect, but they would never be the same again. Because sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous one to underestimate. Sometimes the person everyone calls a failure is secretly building something extraordinary. And sometimes the best revenge isn't anger. It isn't shouting. It isn't proving people wrong with words. The best revenge is building an empire while no one is watching. I stood up, took one last look at my grandmother's grave, and walked back to my car. There was still work to do, deals to close, buildings to buy, a company to grow, and a legacy to protect. Because I wasn't the family disappointment anymore. I was Emily Williams, CEO, investor, builder of an empire, and living proof that silence can be the most powerful strategy of all. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The house was quiet, peaceful. For a moment, I simply stood by the large window in my office, watching the soft orange light spread across the city. 6 years. That's how long it had taken to build everything. 6 years of patience. 6 years of long nights, risky decisions, and silent progress. And now it was finally time. I glanced at the antique grandfather clock standing near the wall. 8:56 a.m. 4 minutes. I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. The screen lit up with a dashboard filled with numbers, maps, and property reports. My company's entire portfolio. Every building. Every investment. Every deal. All carefully organized. A soft vibration came from my phone. A message from Maria. They're here. I smiled slightly. All 3 of them. And they don't look happy. Of course they didn't. My father hated waiting. And he hated losing control even more. Another glance at the clock. 8:59 a.m. Right on schedule. A moment later, the doorbell rang. Once. Then again. Louder this time. Then came the aggressive knocking. Emily, my father's voice echoed through the door. Open this door immediately. I pressed the intercom button on my desk. I'm in the middle of something, I replied calmly. You can wait in the parlor. There was a brief pause. Then my mother's irritated voice. The parlor? We are not guests in this house. I smiled. Technically, they were. Maria will let you in, I said. Then I muted the intercom. 30 seconds later, my phone rang. Robert Chun, Senior Vice President at Highland Mortgage Corporation. I answered. Good morning, Robert. Good morning, Emily, he said politely. I just finished speaking with your father. I leaned back in my chair. And there was a short pause. He was surprised. That was one way to describe it. Did you explain everything? I asked. Yes, Robert replied. The mortgage transfer, the corporate ownership structure, and the portfolio consolidation. Perfect. Thank you, Robert, I said. Always a pleasure doing business with you. I ended the call and closed my laptop slowly. Right on cue, the door to my office burst open. My father stormed in first. His face was red with anger. Behind him, my mother clutched her expensive handbag tightly. Marcus followed last, looking confused rather than angry. My father held his phone in the air. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. I stayed seated. Calm. What exactly are you referring to? I asked. The bank just called me, he snapped. They said the mortgage on this house has been transferred. I nodded. That's correct. Marcus frowned. Transferred to who? I turned the laptop screen toward them. To my company. For a moment, no one spoke. My father stared at the screen. Then his eyes widened slightly. What is this? Portfolio overview, I replied. Marcus stepped closer. His expression slowly changed as he looked at the map on the screen. Blue markers filled the entire Heights district, each one representing a property. My property. This can't be real, Marcus muttered. My mother sank slowly into a chair. How many properties is that? I glanced at the screen. 47. Silence filled the room. My father shook his head. No. That's impossible. I clicked another tab. Financial reports appeared on the screen. Purchase records. Company valuations. Revenue charts. Not impossible, I said quietly. Just unnoticed. Marcus pointed at the map again. Wait, this building. His voice suddenly changed. That's my office. I nodded. Yes. His eyes widened. You're telling me my law firm is renting from you? Technically, I corrected calmly, from one of my subsidiaries. Marcus collapsed into the nearest chair. You've got to be kidding me. My father grabbed the back of a chair, gripping it tightly. The bank said something about $700,000. $782,000, I corrected. The mortgage was paid off 3 years ago. My mother looked completely lost now. But you work from home, she said weakly. You don't even have an office. I gestured around the room. This is my office. But employees? 23, I replied. Property managers, analysts, contractors, and support staff. Marcus stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. You built all this without telling us? I shrugged slightly. You never ask. That sentence hung in the air. Heavy. Uncomfortable. My father finally found his voice again. Where did you get the money to start all this? I leaned back in my chair. My savings. From that small duplex I bought after leaving my corporate job. Marcus frowned. The one everyone said was a terrible investment. Exactly. I opened another document. The first property purchase. Then the second. Then the third. Maria helped me find undervalued neighborhoods. I continued. My mother blinked. Maria? Our cleaning lady? I smiled. My business partner. She owns 15% of the company. My mother looked like she might faint. The room fell silent again. Years of assumptions collapsing in seconds. Finally, my father spoke. His voice quieter now. What do you want from us? I stood up slowly. Then I picked up 3 folders from my desk and placed them on the table in front of them. New lease agreements, I said calmly. Marcus looked confused. For what? For the properties you currently live and work in. My mother stared at the documents. You're charging your own family rent? I met her eyes. The same way you were ready to make me homeless. No one had a response to that. I folded my hands calmly. You have until Friday to sign them. Marcus swallowed. And if we don't? I smiled slightly. Then I'll lease those buildings to someone else. I paused. Then added one final sentence. And Marcus, your law firm's biggest competitor, has already shown interest in your office floor. The silence that followed was deafening. The dining room looked exactly the same as it had every Sunday for the past 20 years. The long oak table was set perfectly. White plates, polished silverware, crystal glasses that reflected the warm light from the chandelier above. In the center of the table, a large roasted chicken rested on a silver tray. Steam slowly rose from it, carrying the familiar smell of garlic, rosemary, and thyme. Normally, that smell made the house feel warm. Tonight, it didn't. Tonight, the air felt heavy, like something important was about to happen. I sat quietly at the end of the table, watching my family. My father cut his meat with precise movements. My mother adjusted the napkin on her lap, her posture as perfect as always. And across from me sat Marcus, my younger brother, Marcus Williams, the pride of the family. Emily, my father said without looking up, pass the potatoes. His voice was calm, controlled, but there was an edge to it, the same edge I had been hearing for months. I passed the bowl across the table. Thank you, he said, already turning his attention back to his plate. No smile, no eye contact, just quiet dismissal. I was used to it by now. At 32 years old, I had officially become the disappointment of the Williams family. Single, no husband, No children. No prestigious career my parents could brag about at their country club dinners. At least that's what they believed. What they didn't know was that the last 6 years of my life had been anything but a failure. But I had never corrected them. Not once. Because sometimes silence is more useful than explanation. "Did you hear the news?" my mother suddenly said, her voice bright with excitement. She turned toward Marcus. "Your brother has been promoted." Marcus leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the moment. "Junior partner," he said with a small smile. "Youngest in the firm's history." My mother beamed with pride. "Oh, we're so proud of you, Marcus." My father nodded slowly. This is what happens when someone stays focused on a real career. The words were casual, but the meaning behind them was very clear. My father finally glanced at me, just for a moment. Then he looked away again. I took a slow sip of water. "That's impressive," I said quietly. Marcus shrugged like it was nothing, but the smirk on his face said otherwise. Marcus had always been the golden child. Law school, top grades, perfect internships, a job at one of the best law firms in the city. Everything about his life followed the exact plan our parents had designed years ago. Everything about mine didn't. "Speaking of responsibilities," my father said suddenly. He set his fork down on the table. Slowly, deliberately. That was never a good sign. My stomach tightened slightly. "We need to talk about the house," he continued. There it was. I had been expecting this conversation for months. Ever since my grandmother passed away 6 years ago and left her home to me. Not to my father. Not to the family trust. To me. The decision had shocked everyone. Especially my parents. "Marcus will be starting a family soon," my mother said gently. "He needs a proper home." Marcus nodded like this had already been decided. "The current place I'm renting is too small," he added. I took another bite of food. Slowly. Calmly. "I see," I said. Marcus leaned forward. "You've been living in that house rent-free for years, Emily." His tone had changed. Less friendly. More judgmental. "It's time someone responsible takes over." My mother nodded in agreement. "We already spoke with the family lawyer," she said. "The house should have gone to your father anyway." That sentence hit harder than the rest. Not because of the house, but because of what it implied. That my grandmother had made a mistake. That she hadn't known what she was doing. The only person in this family who had ever truly believed in me. And now they were rewriting her decision like it meant nothing. My father reached into his jacket. Then he pulled out a document. He slid it across the table toward me. "We need you to sign this," he said. The paper stopped right in front of my plate. I glanced down. Property transfer documents. They wanted me to give up the house. Voluntarily. I didn't touch the paper. "And if I don't?" I asked calmly. Marcus laughed. A short, sharp sound. "Come on, Emily." He leaned back in his chair again. "You can barely afford groceries." My mother sighed dramatically. "We're trying to help you." She folded her hands neatly on the table. "We'll give you 3 months to move out." Then she added almost as an afterthought. "There's a small apartment complex on the east side. Very affordable." I knew the one she meant. The building where Maria lived. Maria. The woman my parents always referred to as *, the cleaning lady. *, the same woman who had quietly helped me build something far bigger than they could imagine. I slowly placed my fork down. The quiet clink against the plate echoed across the table. "The house belongs to me," I said softly. My father's expression hardened immediately. Not for long. He stood up from the table. His voice was colder now. "Leave your keys before you go." The room fell silent. Marcus watched me carefully. My mother crossed her arms. They were all waiting. Waiting for me to argue. To panic. To beg. Instead, I calmly reached into my purse and pulled out my keys. The same keys my grandmother had handed me years ago. The night she passed away. She had squeezed my hand gently and whispered something I would never forget. Sometimes silence is the best strategy. I placed the keys on the table. The small metallic sound echoed in the room. "Thank you for dinner," I said as I stood up. Marcus scoffed. "You're being kicked out." I smiled slightly. "Maybe." Then I walked toward the door. Behind me, My father's voice followed. Don't bother fighting this, Emily. Lawyers are expensive. I paused at the doorway. For just a moment. Then I looked back at them. You might want to answer your phone tomorrow morning, I said calmly. My father frowned. Why? I opened the door, stepped outside, and smiled. Because at exactly 9 o'clock, things are going to get very interesting.